think the best spot where ChatGPT fits into these conversations right now is kind of preparing someone for an investment meeting rather than the investment meeting itself. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Rutledge. I am a former banker, mutual fund salesperson, and loans officer. I'm here to talk about money in the way that I like to. No BS, what the banks don't want you to hear, all that kind of jazz. Let's jump right into today's video. Today I wanted to talk about ChatGPT and whether AI has a chance to become a financial advisor in either a supplementary or replacement role. So let's jump in, we'll take a look at it. So can ChatGPT replace your financial advisor already? The answer is probably not. You can get some general education, but I'll show you some of the answers it gave me and we can take a look and see if there's an application this might be for you. Go ahead and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I post some short form content there. You're going to really enjoy it and you'll want to check that out. But first, let's talk about what GPT is. Generative Pre-trained Transformer is a type of artificial intelligence that uses machine learning techniques and huge amounts of data to generate human-like text. It's been used for a variety of applications, including language translation and text summarization. Now, ChatGPT takes this a step further by focusing on conversations. It was trained on a large data set of real-world conversations and has the ability to generate responses to a wide range of topics and styles of conversation. This makes it particularly useful for chatbot development, and it allows developers to create chatbots that have a more natural and engaging conversation with their users. I'm just reading off my iPad here. So I hope that's a pretty solid explanation of what ChatGPT is, and the fun fact is, it actually wrote that whole introduction. Thanks Marquez Brownlee, he used it in his recent video about it, and I liked the idea, so I wanted to see what it would write for me. So why does any of this matter? Well, what it does is it lets you have more real and natural conversations with chatbots, and so it makes it more potentially useful for customer service applications, help desk support, and you guessed it, maybe even financial advice. So I decided to ask it a few questions, see how it handled advice, and I was pretty surprised actually, to say the least. It was pretty decent. I started with investing advice, so let's take a look here and we'll see what it had to say. So I asked it first what it would recommend for an investment portfolio, and I knew that this was a trick question because it shouldn't give recommendations without know your client information. Because if it was going to replace an advisor, it shouldn't answer that question with anything other than a high-level explanation of what different asset allocations and investments are, and maybe a vague recommendation, because you don't want to be giving advice without knowing somebody's information and everything about their financial situation as an advisor. So what did Chat say? Well, ChatGPT suggested that a KYC review is needed, explained what risk is, and suggested seeking an advisor, which are all great starting points, I think. It then talked about asset allocation and the 100 minus your age rule. So this is a general guideline for the percentage of stocks you should own. So if you're 25 like I am, you take 100 minus 25 and roughly 75% of your asset allocation should be into equities. I have never actually come across this rule personally, but I think it's pretty interesting, although I wouldn't have started there for advice, just because that's an extremely subjective decision how much equities to put into a portfolio, and I would have been a little careful around that, but it did caveat to say that you should seek an investment advisor before making any decisions, so thumbs up for that. For our first go through, I was fairly impressed, so let's move on and we'll see what else it had to say. So I asked if it had any specific risk tolerance advice on my next run through the chat. And again, I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of the answer that it gave. It ran through a very simple know your client conversation, not asking any specific questions, but talking about the kind of things that an advisor would ask in a meeting. Things like financial situation, long-term goals, how your personality handles risk, what you need the money for when you're withdrawing, etc., etc., etc. And I would say these are all very important starter questions when we're taking a look at investment. I appreciated the way that it framed certain questions. Like, are you someone who is comfortable with uncertainty and you're willing to take calculated risks, or do you prefer a more stable, predictable approach to investing? It doesn't shame or highlight either as better or worse. It just gives you the kind of two options to self-reflect a little bit, which I really like. That was what we did a lot in investment meetings when I was in the bank. Obviously, since it's not advice and it's probably made by Americans, it didn't ask any client-facing reform questions that mutual fund reps are required to answer here in Canada. So it definitely didn't get into the detail of advising, which is probably a good thing when we really think about it. We don't really want it to be giving advice based on just the answers that are put in. There's a lot that goes into that kind of thing for compliance reasons, so probably good that it didn't really dive into a ton of those questions. One thing I did notice specifically is that it did not ask any questions when we were talking about risk about over-concentration of investments. So things like having too much in one sector or too much in one asset class, those kind of things. So you can buy multiple ETFs, but if they're all S&P 500 ETFs, you're just buying the same thing with different names. So we want to make sure that we're not over concentrating in certain sectors and exposing ourselves to undue risk. That's that whole diversifying thing. So pretty good. I would say it probably should have mentioned that somewhere in the risk though, but let's keep on moving. The other thing that I would struggle with using a chatbot like this, if you're not well versed in investment advice or selecting or kind of have been through the conversation, is that it offers a lot of detail, and that could put a lot of people into analysis paralysis. When I worked at the bank, I never really showed people more than, we were required to show 3 mutual funds when we were going through options, and I never went more than 3. You start putting too much information out there, it's not a really great thing to do because people will just end up sitting there and going, I'm not sure, and they'll never make a decision. So you want to keep it as simple as possible while still giving as many options as possible. I think the best spot where ChatGPT fits into these conversations right now is kind of preparing someone for an investment meeting rather than the investment meeting itself. So definitely kind of give you an idea of what you're going to experience when you go visit an advisor, but not going to be able to give you advice yet. So we've explored looking up to retirement. What about money management while we're retired? And just before we jump into that, I'm going to ask you, can you please like the video? The algorithm loves it. We need it. It helps share my content with everybody else, and it shows that you enjoyed it and it was high quality content. And if it wasn't, leave me a comment, let me know what you think I could change. So I decided to ask Chat, how do I know how much money to take out of my savings when I retire? This was the exact question that I had put into there. It gave a very simple and concise answer with some math to back it up, which is a massive thumbs up for me. ChatGPT highlighted that there were several factors to look at when determining retirement allocations, which is very true. Things like expenses, money coming in, lifespan, etc. These are all things that you want to think about. And this is good because I personally think that retirement is not an age, it is a number. When you hit 65, you can't just retire like that. You have to actually have cash in the banks. I mean, if you have enough money to retire at 35, give her hell, but yeah, you can't just drop out of your job if you don't have any cash to fall back on. So that's good. Life circumstance, far more important than just age. It suggested the 4% rule, which I think is perfect. I love this rule and explained how it works as well in a very simple way. You take 4% of your savings in the first year, and then you adjust for inflation after that. So if you have $500,000, you take $20,000 out the first year, and then the second year, if inflation was 3%, you would take out your 4% of your investment plus 3% of the 4% to get $20,600 for the year after. So you just keep adding to it there. Honestly, I can't really believe that a robot did a better job explaining what the 4% rule is than I could do, but that's kind of where they come in handy. They're quite concise and they don't have the human brain, they just spew out the information, right? All in all, I would say when we're taking a look at investments, I'm fairly satisfied with ChatGPT and the answers that it gave me. It's definitely on the more educational front right now, but it's exactly what it is. It's a research preview. It's not real software yet. It's just kind of to show off their text. So I think you could make a great addition to KYC review for robo-advisors or as part of an onboarding program for one of the big banks. I would really like to see this replace some of the kind of boring and generic surveys that robo-advisors have in Canada. This could be a lot more personal, probably for not a lot more cost if I had to guess. So feeling pretty satisfied with the investment advice. I wanted to see if it could replace the likes of Dave Ramsey. Love you, Dave. So it mentioned 4 things for paying off debt. It mentioned making a budget, obviously. Prioritize your debts from highest to lowest interest. This one I'm kind of like on, it's kind of a personal preference thing, but I like the snowball where you go lowest to highest debt balance instead. It recommended a debt consolidation loan, which is kind of mediocre to me. I feel like that's a little bit like kicking that can down the road, but it can definitely work for some people. You can also do a balance transfer. Again, it helps, but really all it does is just move debt from here to there. If you're gonna go and rack up the debt again on the card after you've paid it off, you're not really doing anything. So not a huge balance transfer fan personally. And then finally it said seek professional help, which this one again I'm 50-50 on. If you are going bankrupt, then you should seek professional help. You'll need a trustee, but most professionals that you would pay for debt advice, they're not going to be super great. You would be just as good to go to your bank and see what they have to say or do for you as well if you're looking for specific advice. I wouldn't pay someone to give you debt consolidation advice. There's lots of stuff on the internet. You watch the Dave Ramsey show, yada yada yada. It's probably not super worth it. I was slightly disappointed in the answers, to be honest with you. It kind of felt like they were extremely high level answers, and generally you need to put detail in to get detail back. So I asked it to elaborate on its second point. And it went into more detail, like I asked it to, and explain why you should pay your higher interest debt before paying off your mortgage or your student loans, and again, suggested seeing a professional for more specific advice. Overall, not bad. Again, a decent place to start your financial journey. If the AI was to be implemented with your bank or broker, say you log into your app and you need advice, you could just do and get a little bit of quick advice off of there. I think it'd be a really nice value add product. So what do I think of ChatGPT? I think that it is a pretty good starting point, honestly. I was fairly surprised actually by the detail that it gave for a lot of things, considering it's just a research preview. I think it's got a lot of potential. I think it could still be a useful customer service tool for self-directed financial services, or just for quick question and answers regarding something on your mind through your banking app or something like that. Can it replace your advisor as it sits today? No, not even close. But I think in the future, this kind of thing could be, again, a value add product to a robo-advisor, or it could get to the point where it is replacing full-on financial advisors. Thanks for watching today. I really appreciate you checking it out, and let me know what you think of AI in the comments and what your future looks like. We'll see you in the next one.